All right, what week is this? Week number 9. Week number 9. Hello, and welcome to Midwest Fantasy Football Week number 9. Back in Aaron's garage again. Turns out recording these on Wednesday night before we go shoot pool and is working out pretty well. We give us about an hour to record them, and with Aaron's super fast internet, I can upload it here in about 5 minutes compared to the hour and a half that it takes at my house. So thank you for that.
Yep.
All right, matchup number 1 this week. High score, Lee's Cup My Balls. Taking down Brandon's blown call, 140.8 to 124.3.
You know, I'm almost sick of talking about Lee doing so well every week.
It's weird.
Yeah, I know, right? Not a ton to say in this one. We'll point out, obviously, Wilson's 30 points had a huge impact on the game. If he had scored the 14 that he was supposed to get, he would have lost the game. Otherwise, I mean, he had a few people come in under, right? I mean, Dicker did pretty poorly. Missing that extra point, and Kansas City also did pretty poorly with a couple sacks there. But all in all, pretty good lineup. Same on Brandon's side. Not really a lot he could have done otherwise. Just didn't have the players this week. Just didn't have the performance. They tended to score right around what they were supposed to. Not a lot of shifts one way or the other that were large. So just, wind blew in Lee's favor.
Yeah.
Again,
yeah. On this one, I match up. I had the top 4 on both sides highlighted. Quarterback, both running backs, and the top wide receiver. Or I guess two wide receivers and the running back, I guess it would be. The quarterback matchup in this one, Mahomes versus Jackson. Very close matchup. The difference maker here really was Cup and Wilson for Lee. That 51 points compared to, on the other side, 35 points or something like that. That 15-point gap, because when you look down at defense, Philadelphia's defense for Brandon put up an extra 9 points. That's where that extra 15-point bump came back in, was up there at those 2 wide receiver starting spots. So really nice game. Lee grabbing solo first place at 8-1 now.
8-1, yeah.
Basically locking a spot up in the playoffs. I don't know if Lee has ever made the playoffs.
Ooh.
We'll have to come back around to that and try to remember that next week and see if I can figure that out or not. Matchup number 2 is Nick's getting the win for the biggest blowout this week. The T. Bolden girls over Trent's Deucing in the Porter-John, 134.9 to 84.8.
Yeah, at this point, Nick just seems bound and determined to prove the early estimates wrong. This game was kind of interesting. I was kind of looking to see if it could have balanced out any other way. Both teams had 6 players that scored under projection and 3 that scored over. Right, so there wasn't some real heavy swing one way or the other there. But what I did find interesting, obviously, Kamara, 30 points, just a huge bump there. And then on, Trent's side, had a couple players that came in real light, but New York's defense did really well. Cook at under a point certainly didn't help.
Yeah, that was a dart throw because on Sunday, the issue came out where Zeke was going to be sick, or Zeke was inactive or whatever. And so the question was, well, could you throw a dart and be like, okay, I need to start Dalvin Cook then, because it's going to be the backup behind behind Rico Dowdle. And so, okay, maybe he'll get some carries or he won't. And he didn't get anything, so.
Yeah, the other interesting thing, Nick had a couple different players on his bench, right? Tillman at 19, Leggett at 14. If he had added those players in, I think on the wide receiver he would have gotten enough points to outscore Lee. Which would have been a big shift there.
I know you were mad that Lee outpaced you after the Monday night game. So it's nobody's fault but your own, bud.
Yeah.
So, that was the main performance that I had highlighted for Nick, was the Cedric Tillman. That was your number 1 wide receiver. You started 3 of them, and your best guy was on your bench. So not exactly what you're looking for. And then the Dalvin Cook. And we're back.
Yeah, that was perfect timing. Unfortunately, we just checked, and it seemed to cut out all of the nice stuff we said about Nick. But you know what?
It's fine.
It was perfect. We can't recreate it.
Chloe loved it. I gotta be honest. No, my laptop actually filled up because I had too much shit on it, and So this is a joke just for Ethan, I just nuked the entire UAT repo. And I said, I don't need that. I don't write code anymore. So, all right, moving on. I don't know exactly if we got everything in, but we felt like it was pretty close. So we're going to hope that actually our wrap-up was somewhat sembling there. So, all right, closest matchup. Hard to take this loss this week. Tom's always a McBridesmaid over Aaron's Hurts cousin subs hurt donut 120.64 to 120.42, a 22 hundredths victory. That's a tough one.
Yeah, it is. And looking at Tom's team at the end, right? I mean, Henry obviously put up a big performance with 29.3 points. He actually had a couple people on the bench that would have boosted him even more, right? Lawrence, his backup quarterback, would have given him an extra 8 points. Eckler, 18, which is a huge increase over Chubb's 4. You know what? I would have felt a lot better if any of that had happened. I told Scott before the game, I said, well, all I need is Hopkins to have his best game of the season and score 30 points. We calculated it out, how many touchdowns, how many yards. Like, he sends me a text in the middle of it. I wasn't watching. He said, there's one. I said, holy shit, this might happen. He did score his best game of the year, and it just wasn't enough. But I also had a few other players that hurt me, right? Madison at 3.6. Olave, who apparently just slept at 2.3 points.
I think he got hurt.
Yeah, well, he's just 13 reception yards, one reception.
Especially with the little D right there, that's doubtful for this week. So
yeah, not a lot there. I did have Mostert on the bench, right, which was only 8 points, but that would have been better than Madison's 3. So this is the only time I woke up the next morning saying, I hope there's a point adjustment that at the very least gave Tom a little bit more points so I could accept this loss.
Yeah, we figured this. So 2.22 is what, 20 yards? 22 yards?
Yeah, he wasn't even in the last 3 plays of the game. All they had to do was just toss it to him.
Oh, no, 22 yards is, for a quarterback, is 1 point. So a tenth of a point, yeah. So it's like 2 yards. 3 yards from anybody would have gotten you a win.
Yeah,
so,
and he's a receiver. All they had to do was toss him the ball, and that would have been that.
Yeah, one extra catch would have done it for you for sure.
He was on the sideline.
I had highlighted, you got Jalen Hurts, either your right quarterback in of the two that you were starting with 29. Cousins had 17 this week, still a pretty decent week for him. Over on the other side, I definitely noted Austin Eckler sitting on your bench, Tom. He had a pretty good week, 18 and change over Nick Chubb, who you opted to plug back in. He didn't have the greatest game, but you could have been my problem if you would have just traded him to me like I wanted, but no. Fuck you. Moving on. Scotty B and Josh, continue their revenge tour, coming back strong. Another week, 3 wins in a row now, 138.2 over Drew's D-, 91.3.
Yeah, I said almost the same thing when I first looked at this. Coming back with a vengeance. Scott is just ready. He's got his lineup where he wants it, and he's making a run for it now. A-Chain coming in at 32 points. Otten coming in at 22. The 2 players doubling expectation. Only thing he could have done differently is play Addison. Would have given him an extra 10 points. Obviously wouldn't have made a difference here. Drew, on the other hand, just had a couple players who really just didn't perform, right? Burrow did well at 29, but Worthy with -1, negative 10 rushing yards. He only ran in the wrong direction. Pitts at 2 points. Washington underperforming at 4. But also, really the only thing he had there is Douglas on the bench with 10 points, which would have given him an extra 11. Still not enough.
Right. I'm pretty sure that Worthy play was an end around, either an end around or a fumble recovery where it was supposed to be an end around. Because they were going backwards a ways and they somehow managed to save it. I'm just surprised he didn't get any other targets and all during that game. Yeah. I think the big thing for that game was Travis Kelce had a big game, so he took a lot of the targets and that took up a lot of the volume. So, all right, next one up. My objective Pikachu got a win over Ethan, 128 to 100.9 over Ethan's pretty good team. Ethan's pretty good team was slightly less than pretty good this time.
A couple interesting things in this game, right? Looking at Scott's team, we got Barkley bringing in almost 36 points. The Los Angeles defense at 21.5, right? Only player shifts he could have done there, right? He could have brought in Nix at quarterback for a few extra points, or Ferguson at the tight end.
Fuck Dak Prescott. Here we go. So glad to be like, okay, he's gone for a month. I have another reason to put somebody else in there. Frustrating guy.
My first thought while, hearing about Puka, though, getting ejected from the game is a comment Scott made last week, right? He said, my wife is getting sick of me getting all excited every time he does well. I'm just, shouting, Puka, Puka, Puka. And all I could think of was, in the moment in the old cartoons when Pikachu got hurt. And I just kept thinking, Ricky might have just heard Puka, Poo.
I actually didn't see it until much later, and I'm like, why did Puka only get 2 points? Did he get hurt again? Oh, no, he got fucking ejected. What the shit?
Yeah, Ethan, on the other hand, right, I mean, Hubbard and Sutton could have been brought in, give him an extra 18 points. Still wasn't enough. One thing interesting, if we look at quarterback, second wide receiver, tight end, and kicker, for both teams, they came in under projection across the board. So it was just those couple standouts on Scott's side that really made a big difference.
Yeah. The things that I denoted was, the two strong players on Ethan's squad. I won a 6-pack of beer from this matchup as well, so props to me on that one. And then I believe that Nick and Scotty B actually made a wager as well this weekend on which quarterback was going to throw for more yards, and then I'm pretty sure that Dak was Nick's choice. So I think he lost that one, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to go look at my text messages because I forgot to record it until just now, and I know it's in my text messages that I haven't recorded. So, all right, moving on. Let's see. Eric's what knocked off Derek's What the Hockey 120.4 to 113.7.
Yeah, I mean, Eric's team had a big standout with Flowers, right? 32.7 points. It was almost triple expectations. That definitely helped, considering Murray, shit the bed at 4.7 points. Kelsey, we talked about, had the great game at 22. Only thing he could have done differently is bringing Herbert off the bench, at 19 points versus the 4. But, probably wouldn't. It made sense to plan for Murray. Derek, on the other hand, had a standout at quarterback, right? Smith bringing in 25 points. Brown at running back bringing in almost 30. He had a couple guys come in right around 5 points, but otherwise nothing there. And I almost missed this while going through, but obviously the big major play this week was leaving Smith-Njigba on your bench scoring 40 points. I think that was the single highest point scorer this week.
Yes, he was.
And he did nothing for anybody.
Yeah. Well, and if you could have got him in your flex, you probably would have picked up 35 points, would have won you $20.
Yeah.
25. So it is what it is. Unfortunately, you're just out of luck there. The 4.7 points of I didn't watch any of the highlights of that game. It's interesting, but that seems to be the way that the Bears take losses these days. Is they only got 9 points, and somehow Arizona scored 29 points, and the quarterback put up 4 points, no rushing touchdowns, no passing touchdowns, a turnover, and the Bears still lost by 20. So such a Bears thing to do, I guess. All right, and our last matchup, I believe, is Will's Galactic Gibbs Gang taking down Chris, his Minnesota fanboy, 112 to 92.7.
Yeah, so I liked a couple things about this, right? I mean, Will played a really strong defense, 19 points for Baltimore. Very poor decision playing Whittington, right? Just a big miss there with 0. But, otherwise, every player on the team came in pretty close to where they were expected to. Frankly, it's kind of surprised that you pulled it off with Whittington, but hey, take your luck. Looking at Chris's side, few players kind of down in the dumps, which definitely made a difference, right? Wick's not scoring anything. Harrison Jr. getting 3.5, Johnson getting 4. Obviously, you had John Stinn on the bench, would have brought in 22, would have made a big difference there over Harrison. But what stood out to me as interesting is that of all of the things that you could have had a better player on the bench, you had another defense that outscored Houston. Could have gotten you another 8 points there. I don't know why you have 2 defenses. It clearly is not working for you.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure there. But I mean, in one of my other leagues, I'm running 2 kickers just for the joke of the name. So, I mean, it is what it is. So the highlighting that I had here, just the big thing was the Dontavian Wicks game with the 0, and then the Whittington game with also the 0, double zeros on both sides. And then the Quentin Johnson, I don't know if you called that out. Quentin Johnson put up 22 on the bench over there. So I did look up the numbers. The wager was Kirk versus Dak. I believe that Kirk had more yards. Kirk scored. Cousins had 222 passing yards. And then for my team, which had Dak, he had 153 passing yards. Yeah, so Scotty B with Kirk takes that bet. Speaking of Scotty B, he did pull ahead in our IDP matchup. He's up by about 30 now. I had a pretty poor week again this week. He had another really good week. And I'm really projected for a piss poor week this week because I got 2 guys on bye plus my 1 guy that's on IR. So he's going to continue to pull ahead. You're definitely gaining ground as well. And actually, I think of all the teams this last week, Tom had the best week overall. So, yeah, that's continuing to move forward. Nick was asking about projections for the playoffs, the tool that I use. There's still 5 weeks to go in the regular season. The teams at the top are pretty much in. The teams at the bottom are pretty much out. And there's a whole bunch of left to be unknown in the middle. So, like my matchups, I'm projected to finish like 7th, and I've got like a 53% chance of making the playoffs. So it's very much muddled in the middle. In the next couple of weeks, we'll start including that tool and kind of using it as okay, here's what's looking like right now, and maybe, here's what needs to happen. So that is it for this one. Anything else you'd like to wrap up on?
Nope, not me.
All right. We'll see you again next week, whether it be Aaron or Ricky, or we'll find out. So, bye.